considering the fact that there are a whole lot of superfluous dollars circulating in the international economy, which will become less and less, which there will be less and less demand as the petrodollar and the U.S. reserve dollar status decline. More and more dollars will come back to the United States and circulate there and see prices rising there. So they are going to destroy the dollar, and this will mean that the United States will lose its central power as the world's hegemon.
Welcome to Rethinking the Dollar. Today I'm excited to have my guest, Mr. Anthony Migchels. He's the creator and publisher of realcurrencies.wordpress.com. Anthony is a passionate blogger that stresses the importance of awareness on monetary matters, especially dealing with interest in our monetary system. So Anthony, welcome to Rethinking the Dollar.
Thank you so much, Mike. Great being here.
Well, I thank you for sitting down with me. We've had a chance to speak briefly prior to the interview, and looking forward to getting your take on our monetary system, especially a lot of things going on now as far as power shifting out east, and you kind of, really focus on the interest aspect of the details behind the monetary system. So looking forward to getting your take on that. But before we get any further, give us a little bit of more background into, how you arrived at your awakening moment with our monetary system.
Okay, yeah, well, what must have been about 13 years, I think maybe 2003 or so, that I saw a film, The Money Masters by Bill Still, and this really kicked me in the nuts, figuratively speaking, and I was really shocked about this whole thing, and I started to realize that we're slaves of a banking cartel, because that is basically what this film is really very persuasively telling us. And it's an American perspective, but the international bankers are clearly located in London. And Europe is very much a banker colony, just as much as the United States is, and exactly the same people that ruled in the United States rule also in Europe. And I started to realize that we are slaves, to a banking cartel, and that I needed to understand more of how this slavery actually works, because it's semi-subtle. It's once you see it, it's quite plain. It's hidden in plain sight, but until you do, most people still don't see it. So it is somewhat subtle, and it has everything to do with how our money system works and how money itself works, what money is. And I've come to understand all this. I've been designing my own currencies. We can talk a little bit about that later also. But this has really helped me to understand the current money system that we have also. Because if you look at money as an engineer, as a designer, you start noticing how it flows, where it leaks. For instance, as it does with Usury. You become really very strongly aware of what actually causes inflation, deflation, all these matters more. And I've studied a lot of the alternatives, basically studied every alternative monetary proposal out there, be it Austrian economics, social credit, the entire body of interest-free economics, and most of, I'm quite well aware of most tenets of modern economics, which are all complete bogus, by the way. Modern economics is a complete hoax, a ridiculous pseudoscience that is really of a moronic level, and it really only exists to explain why the rich must get richer and all the rest must work like pigs to service their lifestyle. So.
All right. Okay. Well, fair enough. I mean, I definitely look forward to getting to the whole interest-free, economics. Definitely would love to hear more about that one. Now, before we get any further, I usually start off with RTD questions. And first one is, what comes to mind when Anthony Migchels hears the words "rethinking the dollar"?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking what many people these days are thinking. The end of the petrodollar paradigm is clearly coming. More and more countries, including the major powers like Russia and China, are looking to do without the dollar for oil trade. And we all know that the credit crunch in 2008 has really hammered the dollar, and that many of Washington's insiders even are saying that literally we are going to kill the dollar. That's what they're literally saying, and they must, because within the current paradigm of Keynesianism and modern economics, there is either a unbearable debt load, or there will be inflation, one of the two. And considering the fact that there are a whole lot of superfluous dollars circulating in the international economy, which will become less and less, which there will be less and less demand as the petrodollar and the U.S. reserve dollar status decline. More and more dollars will come back to the United States and circulate there and see prices rising there. So they are going to destroy the dollar, and this will mean that the United States will lose its central power as the world's hegemon. And what we're currently seeing is the dollar will continue to circulate. I mean, it's not that the dollar is going to disappear, but it will lose its global primacy, and it will become just as the British pound, which was once the reserve currency also. It will become a second-rate currency, no more valuable than a yuan or the ruble or even the euro. So more primus inter pares in a international network of major currencies.
All right, fair enough there. Now, you're currently in the Netherlands. I forgot to mention that part there. But why is this subject matter, just monetary awareness, learning about, your local government's dealings and debt and things like that, and usury, why is that so important right now, this particular time?
Well, because it completely controls our lives. What really people need to start understanding is how money and the monetary system completely dominate their lives, even without them knowing it. And this manifests in many different ways. It's especially acute for the United States, because the United States is currently at the center of a controlled demolition of its empire. And this will have unbelievably negative effects for the quality and standard of living in the United States, even more so than in Europe. But Europe will be very hard hit also. So especially in the United States, it is at this point very acute that people start waking up to what is going on. But even in a more or less stable situation, we are complete slaves to usury. For instance, in Europe, but also in the United States at this point, if you have zero assets, and by far most Americans have more debts than they have savings, so this goes for most Americans. If you have no assets, if you live paycheck to paycheck, like the vast majority of Americans these days do, you lose at least 40% of your income to usury, and that's just usury.
Wow.
And the reason why this is so, and why people don't understand that this is so, is because this usury is being passed on in prices by producers. So producers go into debt to create the products that we need. They pay interest on these debts to the banking cartel. Next, they pass these costs on to us, the consumers. And these costs for capital in the supply chain, they compound, and they rise up to 40%. And this is an average. You have capital-intensive industries like construction, where it's even much higher. But on average, it's about 40% of the prices that we pay are usually passed on by the producer. So even if you have zero debts, you still lose 40% of your income to usury. And this is a huge part of the human condition. This is just what it costs us every day. Yeah? There are many more problems that are associated with this. Because of usury, our money supply is not functioning properly. What is happening is that all the money is with the rich, and in Main Street, there's far too few dollars are circulating to service real economic activity. So what you have is trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, and we especially saw this in the aftermath of 2008. We all know that the Federal Reserve created this immense shitload of dollars. All in all, they must have printed something like $16 trillion all in all, in easy credit to their banking cartel buddies.
Yeah.
But this money never reached Main Street. It never started circulating in the real economy. They blew a gigantic bubble in the New York Stock Exchange, which is heading to 20,000 if they don't start raising interest rates,
Right.
which is absolutely not covered back by any real production because it's completely overvalued. It's all a matter of easy money printed by the Federal Reserve Bank and also the ECB and the Bank of Japan. But this money is not circulating between normal men like yourself, like me, and this is why wages, and this is a key issue to understand, because there is scarce money in the economy, the capitalists, the guys with a lot of money, they control us, the laborers, because if money is scarce, you only need a few bucks to hire somebody, and labor will always be forced to accept low wages, long working hours, because there is no money in circulation, and they need a bit of money at least to survive.
Yeah.
So scarce money is closely related to low wages and wage slavery, and this indirectly is caused by usury.
Okay, now let's take a step back for those that are not, familiar with, the origins of the concept of usury. Give us the basics. Give us the beginning and the introduction of the concept of usury into our monetary system and how it has, basically grown to the point where it's kind of taken over and enslaved us, as you just put it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Well, usury, and this is very good to understand, usury is really very much at the heart of the human condition, always has been, always. If you look at the Old Testament, you have the story of the golden calf, where people decided not to worship God, but they went with the golden calf. And you also have countless quotes in the Old Testament condemning usury. And usury and the golden calf, the worship of money, are basically one. And usury is what you could, usury literally means nothing else but interest on loans of money, and not excessive interest on loans of money. This is very important to understand. This is only how will I say this, a perversion of the real meaning of the word that only came in the public parlance in the modern age, the last few hundred years, and this is by design, because this is how it always works. When they want to manipulate you, they start changing the meanings of the word. This also happened with inflation, by the way, but it very much happened with usury. First, it meant interest on loans of money. Nowadays, it is supposed to mean excessive interest on loans of money. And this is also how they have conned us into believing that, 5%, well, that's not excessive, that's not excessive interest. Well, let me explain to you that if you have a mortgage and you pay 5% per year on this mortgage, which is on average a good deal, although over the last 10 years or so, interest rates have been historically low because of the huge crunch that we're going through, which is a long-term depression, and that's why rates are low. But 5% historically is a very normal interest rate for a mortgage, and this will mean that if you have a 200K mortgage, over 30 years, you will pay almost 300K in interest. And this for this, reasonable and basically almost inconsequential 5%. And this is what they are trying to sell to us. And this is what they have managed to sell us, let's face it, because we've fallen for it, with all we got. And even today, usury is a complete anathema, I mean, even among military reformers, usury is not a word that you will hear often. They will often ignore how crucial usury really is, but usury really is a very old struggle, and it used to be after the days of Christ, and Christ is very much against usury, and in America there are many Christians, even though Christianity has been dying in Europe, but in America there's still very many Christians. And all Christians should know that Jesus was vehemently against usury, and would have, if he was here now, he would tell us that usury is for animals only. It is theft. It is murder. Why is it theft? Because you do not give anything real in exchange.
Right.
And this is a key issue with usury. you don't give anything, you only lend something. And the users forever have been telling us that this is a service that they can ask money for, but the net effect of it is that the rich have all the money and the rest of us are borrowing from the rich, and we are paying immense amounts of money over these borrowings. At this point, the world is in debt $220 trillion globally, Mike.
Right.
$220 trillion globally, and this costs at least 5% to service, at least, and this is a positive scenario. So we're losing 11 trillion in usury globally, and it's all going to the very wealthiest people in the on the planet who actually own the banks.
Right. Wow. Now, you say $220 trillion worth of debt, and I have just recently heard that a lot of that is basically half of that is new within the last couple of years since our 2008 2009 little crisis there. So, do you ever see a time where it will begin to be repaid, or interest rates go back to normal to where it can be serviced, or is it basically it has to be washed away? It has to be extinguished. What are your thoughts about it being repaid back?
Listen, I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that ultimately nobody can ever dream of paying $220 trillion back to the banks. I mean, and the banks don't really expect us to pay this back, because what is very important to understand is that the banker only wants us to be so much indebted that a maximum portion of our income is being taken away to service the debt. They never want us to repay the debt. They just want to keep the cycle of usury going. So this debt is never going to be repaid, but they will maintain this debt level, and they will make it grow. If the economy grows, the debt will also grow, because if the economy grows, then there can be more sucked off via usury, and that's why the debt will grow. But over the last 8 years or so, we have seen a huge increase in debt, as you were mentioning. Sovereigns have been going up from, on average, about 60% of GDP debt levels to well over 100% of GDP debt levels. Private households have seen huge amounts of debt increases. Businesses also. So across the board, we have seen a huge worsening of debt to income ratios, and the situation is even much worse now than it was in 2008. So it's hard to see how a new round in the crunch could be avoided.
Right.
And I think that the ECB and the Federal Reserve are basically constantly printing money to, even if it is clandestine, to plug holes and to extinguish local fires that are breaking out.
All right, now I want to touch base now on the whole idea, as you just left off mentioning the ECB and the Federal Reserve. And so let's talk about the banking aspect. You're there in the Netherlands, and I know in several places there the negative bank rates are implemented now. So basically, you have to pay the banks to hold your money. So give us a little bit of your thoughts on that. And is that something that will just take over completely in Europe, or is it just going to be isolated events?
Well, negative interest rates are indeed coming. And it's a very intriguing development, because obviously negative interest rates are better than positive interest rates. It's better that the rich pay to us than we pay to them, because they have excess money, we don't.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of negative interest rates. So keep that in mind. But obviously, the banking cartel is not interested in giving us negative interest rates for the long term. So something is up, something is happening, and what is happening is quite clear. The debt has become so humongous that they have to pretend as if they are doing everything that they can. And classically, banks have been telling us that they can stimulate the economy by lowering interest rates. This is absolutely not the case. It's a hoax. You must understand this. Because they only say this because they create the illusion that when interest rates go down, that this will stimulate more people taking on new debt, creating more liquidity, and this extra liquidity will stimulate the economy. This is the economic rationale. Mm-hmm. However, the banks are not led by short-term market situations. Absolutely not. They will pretend that they are. They will pretend that they are stupid and can't think longer than 3 months because they're so insanely addicted to money, etc., etc. But in reality, the banks, they are really very cold calculators, and they know exactly what they are doing. And they create inflations and deflations as they see fit. And they do this with long-term strategic purposes in mind. And at this point, they are creating a deflation. And there's absolutely nothing that even minus 10% interest rates can do to change their minds. They will only start lending again when they want to start lending again, and when they want to start stimulating the economy again, which is, for as far as I can tell, not within the next coming few years.
Wow.
So negative interest rates are happening mainly to create the illusion that they are trying to stimulate the economy, and also, and this is a very important bonus that this scheme offers them, is that it is hard to combine with cash money.
So cash is
Because
society.
people, if with negative interest rates, people would be could start think, well, what the hell is my money still doing in the bank? You know, it's costing me money to keep it there, so I'm going to take it out. And if you have cash, that's going to be an option. And we all know that they want to end cash because they want full control over all transactions. They want to end privacy in transactions. In the United States and in Britain and in the Netherlands also, a large part of the number of transactions is already electronically. So in Germany, on the other hand, and this is also good to know, it is not. Still 65% or so of German transactions are cash-based, and the Germans are very fanatical about their right to private transactions. So it's going to be very difficult to end cash there. But this is one reason why they're going negative with the interest rates to further their war on cash.
All right. So it sounds like, those the powers that be, those who run the system, are literally trying to squeeze down all options for a ultimate goal of complete control of the system. It sounds like.
Yeah, they control the system already completely, but the control of the system is used to consolidate control of everything. So it's buying up more and more transnationals. Most of the transnationals already are the property of the banking cartel. With this depression, they are destroying small and medium business in Europe and America, which is clearly their goal. They want only the big boys to thrive in the economy, because those they control, and obviously they control the politicians, because all the politicians are basically on the payroll of the banks, whether it's Hillary or of most of these other fools.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. That's good. That's interesting. That's wild to think about, because what's the ultimate goal? Like, if you own everything, everything flows through you, everything is yours. Then what? Like, what's the ultimate goal of owning
yeah,
everything and enslaving everybody? I mean, there's no
yeah,
free will or no free choice, anything like that. It sounds
yeah.
like misery. Sounds horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible, and it is intended to be horrible, because the devil himself is behind all this.
Yeah.
It may sound a little bit esoteric or even strange or bizarre to say something like this, but it is a fact. The devil himself is behind all this, and
Right.
these people who are in control of the banking cartel, they are completely insanely possessed. It is so bad, it is impossible for us to really understand. They are complete power maniacs, completely burning with avarice, and all they want is more, 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 and not even so much in terms of money, because they have all the money in the world, but they ultimately want to control our souls. They want everything. They
Wow.
want total control of everything that they can think of. That's how megalomania is burning within them.
Yeah. Wow. Well, let's transition now. So we talked a lot about the problems, debt, usury, just, the powers that be wanting complete control. Now, we're in 2016 in April. A lot of things are happening now between the whole Deutsche Bank, coming out, confirming some things, and all the power shifting out east. So right now, what are some solutions that people can actually begin to take right now to just try to survive and to prepare for the change that's inevitable or already taking place as we speak? Let's get into some solutions now. And I know you have some things going on there in the Netherlands. You and some of your partners there have a regional currency and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about those things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that more and more people are seeing that that the banking paradigm is getting end of life. We see this also in the way that fintech companies are popping up all over the place, financial technology companies. These will not really solve any of the issues because they're all involved in return on investment, which is a function of usury. We don't want return on investment. We want interest-free credit for normal people, and that is not what they are providing at the moment. But that is what alternative currencies are very much about. Not all of them. Bitcoin, for instance, is a huge hit. Because of the libertarians backing the Bitcoin, and it is very similar to gold in the way it was developed. But it is, while I'm not a friend of Bitcoin in the sense that Bitcoin is not a very, how do you call this, a very successful unit in terms of financing real trade. It is mainly successful in good speculation, unfortunately. But it is very successful in the sense that millions of people have heard of Bitcoin, and it is showing the way in the sense that that it is showing that alternative currencies are viable and legal and doable.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many other ways of creating alternative currencies which are more effective for Main Street, and this involves credit creation by bookkeeping, basically just as the banks do, because nowadays people know that fractional reserve banking, the banks create all the money that they lend out. This is this makes this whole usury business even much worse, of course, because they just print the money and then have us pay interest on it. But and much in the monetary reform movement nowadays is about that people expect that banks lend out savings, and now that we find out that banks print money, they want to restore the situation that they thought was already happening. So much of the monetary reform is about let the government print the money, and the banks can only lend out what they actually have in deposits from savers. But this is exactly the wrong conclusion, Mike.
Yeah.
The conclusion must be if we can print money, and the banks show that we can, then obviously the question should be, why are we paying interest on this money?
Right.
And the answer to this question is because we have not been paying attention. And that's the only real answer. So what we should be doing is start printing our own money, interest-free, credit-based. And that is what has been going on, by the way, already in many schemes worldwide for decades. The most successful one is the Swiss Re, where they have been doing this for 80 years because they started in the last Great Depression in the 30s, and nowadays they are turning over billions in ultra low cost credit, which is accepted on a voluntary basis. Yeah. So the Re has been turning over billions over the last 80 years with about 60,000 businesses participating, and they create their money as interest-free credit, or as very low-cost credit, I should say. They don't do it interest-free. They should be, but okay. But there are clear limitations in the WEIR scheme. For instance, consumers are not partaking, and the WEIR is not convertible to Swiss franc, which is a huge limitation. About which many of the businesses complain. And my currency, I've been devising alternative currencies for 10 years now, and I've been trying to understand if interest-free money is so much better than the usurious trash that the banks are giving us. Why is it not the norm yet? And obviously, you can answer this by saying, "Oh, because the banks control everything, etc." But this is an insufficient answer, because in my studies of all these alternatives, I've noticed that the reality is that none of the alternatives are good enough as it is yet. They are all very good steps in the right direction, but none of them provides all the functionality that you want from money. Except, and that is where my new currency comes in, the new design that I've been creating with a number of my colleagues is all about providing an ultra low cost unit that gives us everything that we need. Interest-free credit, convertibility to euro, very easy to handle. You can just pay with your smartphone or online payment modules. Very easy to open an account, not the endless bureaucratic nonsense that banks will give you if you just want to deposit some money there. You can open an account in 1 minute or so. Ultra low cost. It is completely free for consumers, and business people will pay a tenner per month in our own currency. So not even in euro, but in Florijn, which is the name of my currency.
Now, is it a digital, or is it paper, or give us some of the schematics of how it will flow?
Basically, at this point, we are offering only electronic, so you can pay with your mobile, and you can pay online, just via internet, just like with online telebanking.
Yeah.
And but we are hoping to implement paper money in the future, because there are a lot of advantages to paper money over electronic payments. For instance, one of these issues is that all electronic payments are logged, and even though we control the database, ultimately the state will get its hands on it if they want.
Yeah.
And so that's a limitation. So we will be providing paper money, but the Florijn, which is the name of my currency, will circulate in the Netherlands as a whole. And even though the Netherlands is very small by US standards, it's still a bit of a area to manage. And if you have paper circulating all over a country, it is a logistical challenge of the first order. And we first want to get some money flowing before we take that step.
Right. Well, Anthony Migchels, I have one more question for you in regards to the dollar. What's your opinion? What's your long-term projections of the Federal Reserve note as it is today? What would it be 2, 5, 10 years from now?
Well, I think that the Federal Reserve note will at some point start losing value. I'm not really too sure about price levels as they have been developing over the last few years, which is annoying me. But obviously, I think that the inflation numbers are already much higher than the state and the Federal Reserve are reporting. I know that unemployment is very much higher than is being reported. It's closer to 25% than 5%. So. And this is a very disastrous situation, and it will only get worse. And what will ultimately happen is some sort of a reset, where the dollar will be exposed as overvalued, and it will be devalued, and this will come together with a great rise of the Chinese yuan. Because one of the major imbalances in the international economy is that the United States is importing far more from the rest of the world than it is exporting to them. So there is a huge current account deficit in America, which is very pleasant for America because they're getting loads of free stuff every year. But that is coming to an end, and the Chinese will stop being a mainly export-driven economy, and they will shift through servicing their own internal demand, which will be much more valuable because the yuan will be much more powerful in the international arena, and the United States will fall back in the great power race. They will become basically some sort of version of Brazil with low standards of living. A lot of urbanization with a lot of poor people there, a lot of mass immigration, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Although the United States will lose much of its attraction that it has now, you will also see many white people leaving the country. I think this is already happening, but it will only pick up much more, pick up steam much more. It's also happening in Europe, by the way. In Holland, we lose about 1% of our white population every year because people are simply leaving because of the mass immigration and the deplorable living conditions that have been created here over the last few decades.
No, where are they going? Like, where's ideal place to get away from all that type of stuff?
Yeah, that's a very good question, of course, because ultimately this is a prison planet, and the banking cartel is everywhere. The New World Order is everywhere, and so you can't really escape. But many of the Dutchies are going to Canada, for instance, where there is still a lot of space, and where you have a reasonably soft economy, not this insane ultra capitalism that the United States has, which is obviously very detrimental to most of the people. Unless you're very rich, then you're doing well in the United States.
Yeah.
And also maybe South Africa. The Netherlands has strong relations with South Africa. Afrikaans is the Dutch language. So that's where they're heading.
Wow. Well, Anthony Migchels, thank you for sitting down with us and giving us your take on usury as well as the economy and things in Europe and your thoughts on our economy in general. Give the audience a chance to, I guess, get in and get more information on DeFlorin, your currency there, and as well as how to follow your work.
Yeah, realcurrencies.wordpress.com is my blog, and people can read up on there. I've got about 250 high-class articles, if I even don't say so myself, but really worthwhile reading. And I also extensively discuss the Florijn and my systems that I have devised for optimal unit creation. And yeah, that's about it.
All right. Well, sounds good. Look forward to staying in touch with you and definitely, getting more take on the currency you have going on there. I'm definitely interested in alternatives. So trying to, diversify myself. So definitely will check it out. So thanks for sitting down with me.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike.
Well, this concludes my conversation with Anthony Migchels from realcurrencies.wordpress.com. Hope you found us to be informative as well as educational. Scroll down below, leave us a comment. Love to hear your thoughts on this interview, as well as give us a thumbs up if you found it to be informative. Looking forward to bringing you more RTD interviews. Until next time.